Hey, beautiful people. Logan Lenz here, CEO of Nucleus. And today I'm going to show you Neuly, our technology, a little bit about our API, and really explain how we are powering the psychedelics industry with this all-in-one, all-inclusive, psychedelic platform that offers a lot of tools, data, and inputs, opportunities to integrate and accelerate this industry forward with a great deal of data and content. So I'm hoping this kind of can be a 20-minute. I know the last demo I said 30 and we went like almost an hour. But for this, I'm going to really just scratch the surface on what the public sees first in terms of Neuly.com. Then I'm going to go over what we see as an admin, how we control all the data that comes in. And then I'm also going to show this custom dashboard product that allows users to really design their own psychedelic journey in terms of how they consume and ingest all the content that we have in this platform. So let's get started. And I'm hoping this is very informative and even entertaining as we go along. So this is Neuly.com. We're actually about to launch Neuly 2.0, which is essentially what you'll see in the back end brought to the front, which is a little bit more of a sleeker design. But I'm showing this first because if you went to the website now, Neuly.com, you would see this. And I just want to make sure you would kind of see that you can log in and then kind of see the platform just as anyone would with no cost, right? It's free to access. And there's a button here to request data. We do reports, we do analyses, and then there's just obviously opportunities for us to integrate and work with a lot of the stakeholders in this industry. And that's how you can get a hold of us, from this public, forward-facing website. Now, what we do is we index a bunch of information spanning really the whole web. You can kind of think of us as a Google spider, and we're trying to keep tabs on things that I'll show you here on this screen that encompass the moving parts and the evolution and the progress that's being made in the psychedelics industry. So this is our admin side. Users don't technically see this in the way that, we obviously manage it. There's custom versions of the API where you can curate your own data points, but just want to go through some of the ways that we look at this data and therefore explain how scalable it is and really why this is a robust way to capture data and then curate it at scale. So in here we have over 2,000 organizations. That's really the gist here, is that we obviously list this in a database. This populates in many other ways, but we're bringing this in real time. And then we're adding focus, which is what are they working on from a compound perspective. And then we can obviously edit and add more information that even is broader than what you see on the screen here today. We also keep track of valuations and also locations. So if there's a physical office somewhere, we keep track of phone numbers and addresses, and that's important to match back and map to all of our locations that we have inside the database, which is super important for tracking regulation progress, spanning specifically, United States and how different, the legal landscape has become. So we have a bunch of import functions, importing a lot of different events. So we have clever ways to get more data in, as well as the automated way. This is really in no particular order, but I'm going to kind of just go through as we manage it. Next, we have practitioner listings. So in here, you can see anybody that is inside of Neuly Care, which is our, couple thousand practitioners, and then it spans where are they being mapped to, are they accepting actual consultations, and then we keep record of those requests, that activity, and obviously have a point of contact in the way that we communicate with each of these listings. So inside of here, you'll have practitioners that are ketamine clinics. You can see clinics, you'll have retreats. We also have therapists and coaches that have registered for the platform. And therefore, we do things like power some of our other brands and assets with this data, especially if this practitioner wants more distribution and more awareness. We have something like Psychedelic Finder, which I'm sure you know, which is one of our projects that essentially matches an end user that's looking for treatment with these bookable listings. And it doesn't have to occur on Neuly, which is the beautiful part of the API. Then we keep track of requests that come in from the user side, and obviously the directories of which we're able to serve. So Psychedelic Finder is one version of that, but if someone wanted for our practitioners to be powering their directory, we could do that next day just by plugging in our API into their front end of their website, and we would then obviously engineer the working relationship of which these bookable listings actually are able to exist and take place in real time. We also index the people of the industry. So you could see all the people that we have here listed. Some of this is human curated and really even third party submitting other people, or we manage it, or they're users inside the database. And if we went into, let's see, Robert Barrow, you could see it all maps to like where's the person live, what company do they work for, some other information. We got images and bios, a lot of good stuff in here. We can also import people, which is nice. Then we have investors. So all the investors in the industry, we try to make sure that we keep tabs on them, add them accordingly, and then obviously map the activity thereafter. We also have ways to tag and label all this activity and all these data inputs. Focus is really one of those catch-alls where if it's a compound or a specific niche, we like to make sure that we identify each of those data inputs with as many variables that can make it a little bit more comprehensive and understandable. So you can see here, what's a good example on here? Maybe cannabis is the best example, where compound is usually the most used focus. So you can see there's a lot of listings here, 51. I'm only showing 10. Most of the other ones on the other pages are going to be the compounds, and the companies that are interacting with those compounds will obviously be mapped to that focus. Here's locations. So we try to geocode wherever anything is happening, right? So we have to list all the cities, all the zip codes, and then obviously Latin long on a map. Latin long meaning latitude, longitude. That obviously happens automatically, but we need to make sure that we're catching all. So if we have a new organization in a new area that we don't have indexed, it'll automatically understand that it's a new latitude and longitude, update the location accordingly. Some geocoding then happens in the background. Skip over that. Here's jobs. It's an example of some of the jobs that might be submitted and or indexed. Then we actually create opportunities to submit job applications with our partners. You can see here, this is what that is. If someone is interested in a job, we receive that and work with the partner that may have posted that job. We also have a research arm here, which we can add in real time, but obviously then also keep an exhaustive list of as more research continues to be published. And we can just add things. Let's just say I'm adding a new paper that I found. I could do it manually, right? So type in the details, link to it, give an overview, connect the focus, right? Maybe it's about ayahuasca, connect a company if there's a company mentioned, connect a person, and save it. Industry events are obviously always happening. We index that. Also can manually add these and allow this to be curated from a public perspective as well. And that just helps because we also make sure that we consider event types like conferences versus panels versus retreat events that might be happening. Then we have a really robust section, which are the clinical trials. So we list out the clinical trials in all the details and all the formats. But then what's most important is to really add intelligence around each of these listings. So what are the phases that we need to keep track of? What are the conditions that these, clinical trials are actually trying to work toward and combat, right? And then we have just other variables, interventions, outcome measures, statistics, study designs, and then we can obviously also manually override some of this data through some of the partners that might be providing data for us about these clinical trials, and therefore import functions become pretty pivotal. In terms of import, that's also another really important section of this dashboard, in that we can import clinical trials, like I just said, and then we can import a whole host of different things by category. So specifically, if we know that we're targeting a new compound and there's clinical trials that just got underway, we could put that data point into a new file that someone was working on and manually compiling that data. And then we can add a focus and import it into something like this immediately, and then it'll populate the whole platform in real time, by the way. So keep in mind, as all of this gets input, that we have a 4I rule of approving new content, but once it is approved, it's not a free-for-all, but it's widely distributed across any of those API partners, any of those directories that you saw earlier, and really any of the widgets that you'll see later and custom feeds. You'll see that data in real time being populated, which is great. We have some related entities that we include here. We have the ability to add research through partners that we work with, Google Scholar being one, some other scientific journals. Same thing here, that we bring in the focus. In this case, it's mostly compounds, as you can see. And then we can specify by keyword and really just make sure we're segmenting new data points that we're bringing in. We can also import things like images that then take over some of the nuanced behaviors inside of the platform. So for example, Neuly Care having like a catch-all thumbnail that shows a specific type of therapist, we can obviously override and have a more of a default image, things like that. We can import settings as well, which you can kind of see is very flexible. A lot of terminologies that could be thrown into that. Now, the data side, specific to like content, is the data feed dashboard, where we are really just creating a feed of all sorts of different data points, and then we come in here every day and look through it. We have things like mixed, we have podcasts, we have articles, we have videos, we have news, and we're catching all that and then making sure that we're submitting them to the right bucket and only approving those that are relevant and applicable and something of value to not only the platform but to our subscribers and the industry as a whole. So this is a good example of feeds that we can set up, and this runs the whole gamut of all sorts of different ways that we can pull data here. Media items as well. We have courses that we pull, patents, and then a nice little metrics section here, or if I threw in the all-time, this looks pretty beautiful, where it's just giving me a good understanding of how many people, how many organizations, how many news items over a certain period of time. All right, so we did import. So listing request, this is, hey, I have a company, I don't have a listing on Neuly. So this comes in the form of, please add my listing. It comes in the form of, this needs to be edited, almost like a Wikipedia moderator would be. So we keep track of that and obviously keep up with those changes. Insight requests are, hey, I want this feature, I want a report, I want a new feed, I want a new widget, and we keep track of that so that we can just constantly be improving and letting this platform evolve. For job report entries, we run often a lot of surveys, and we look to our industry partners and users of this platform so that we can get feedback. We did a job report analysis recently, but we do all sorts of data collection exercises like that. And then there's just geeky stuff like entity merge and content. We run automated backups. We keep track of logs. We obviously deal with security and some other, considerations to ensure that the data is always protected. Even some HIPAA compliance when we need to collect user data. And then we have some admin stuff that we don't necessarily need to get into that obviously helps propel our ecosystem and work within how we leverage the API and the other brands that we power, but also the ability to use like tools like login with Neuly, which is, if you don't know, the ability to use your Neuly account, your username and password to log into third parties that are accepting that, almost like a login with Facebook used to do, and you often see that with Google as well, where you can get into a new platform and register using your credentials from another entity. So Neuly actually has that, which we're hoping can help power and facilitate user transfer as well as data transfer from one platform to another. We also have same thing with search. Our search engine can be powered and embedded across the web, which is great. I'm going to move on to the next section. This will be our final section, so I'm probably good on time. And this is my favorite section. So if you're a subscriber of Neuly and you end up upgrading, you get to customize what you're looking at now. This is our custom dashboard. This isn't a specific one, but we have 4 different types that really depends on the persona and what you're trying to accomplish with this data. But you can see that this is very flexible in that you can design where everything goes, right? Looks awesome, right? So you can see clinical trial, all that data that we just looked at from the admin perspective, you kind of see it summarized in here, clinical trials, patents, you can see a list here, organizations, you can see jobs, the investment focus, organizational focus, client trials by compound. There's another job listing. It kind of just keeps going. And the beauty of this is you can then change to more succinct view if you don't want the detail. You can collapse all the widgets and just make it more themed like this. So it's like a shortcut, easier to look at. You can add a new space. When I do this, a new space will pop under here. By the way, this map I like a lot, so I'm probably going to pull that up. Let's grab this and move it all the way up here. Come on. Right there. You probably want it to be bigger. Let's do that. Yeah, so those are clinical trials on a map. Love that. And then you can add a widget. So just to go through this really quick, you got latest news, latest psychedelic news in a nice custom feed. You can add your own notes. So a lot of organizations might share this, this dashboard amongst themselves. And actually, I'm going to make a detailed view because it's kind of getting tight here. That's okay. All right. And so adding so all these are just different widgets that you can then customize and filter. Like, keep in mind, I could change this to just DMT, add it to 20 results, and it's going to just be longer. So all this is very fluid. You can request a widget here that then goes to our team to add a new function. We also have something brand new with Neuly 2.0, which is the SelfQuery function, where over here you'd be able to type in and build your own widget based off of what you're trying to pull across all the data points. If you pull in multiple variables, you're then going to be able to create your own framing of how you want to look at the data. Because as you can see, there's just a lot of data in here, and you want to be able to make sense and utilize it to the best of your abilities and what's going to make most sense for you to make better decisions and enhance your organization or your research, right? So yeah, you can see all these widgets. We're always adding more, and that's the beautiful thing about Neuly specifically. So that's the subscription and the custom dashboard. What's really amazing about how we built all of this is, if you didn't know, this data powers our other brands. So at Nucleus, and I'm going to just make sure that I'm reminding you that we're raising money right now. But all of our brands kind of work around this platform, Psychedelic Invest being an example of that, where because we have all this company data and the investment data, Neuly just powers that site, and that site just becomes a source for us to publish great, intelligent data points and content and articles and reports. And therefore, this ecosystem kind of works in harmony in that way. And as I mentioned before, Psychedelic Finder is a very similar type of concept where we have practitioners in the database, and then those practitioners can essentially be broadcasted throughout our other platforms, most notably Psychedelic Finder. And if others want to contribute and take part in this ecosystem from a third party, they could get access to this and obviously help us power them and help us do what we're trying to do, which is connect people with the psychedelics industry and in a sense create the foundational components to propel this industry forward. So we are crowdfunding, as you can see at the bottom of the screen here. And if you didn't know, you can go to wefunder.com/nucleus. And for as little as $200, you can invest in all of this, what we're building. And it's a real exciting time for us, right? So as we turn the corner into 2023 and with excitement for psychedelics continuing to accelerate and grow, we have a massive opportunity in front of us. And we've done everything that I've showed you today, the technology, the platform, the data collection process on a shoestring budget. And it's time for us to scale and grow and move even more quickly so that we can empower all of the organizations in this industry and help as many people as possible, right? That's what we're here to do. We believe psychedelics are a main tool to unlock not just a healthier society, but the data suggests that we can reach enlightenment and happiness and work together collectively in a more conducive, more transparent, and just more efficient system. And that's what we're also striving to do as we continue to grow Nucleus. So thank you for joining. Hopefully you're inspired. If you are, please reach out. You can find me here on LinkedIn. If you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, leave a comment, reach out through our website, invest through WeFunder, and I'll be happy to have a conversation with any and all of you. Expect more of these events. Hopefully you got a lot out of this, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.